what are you guys doing at Lafayette to improve your catcher's flexibility and mobility on a daily basis?
Yeah, so I mean, our strength coach does a really, really good job just on every weight program that we do, and starting and ending every lift with some kind of mobility series. So from a catching standpoint, we have like an activation routine that we use every day when we start, and it's essentially it's 10 yards, and all we're really doing, and for me, being able to move from a catcher's, you see a guy set up and he's back there catching, but it's how he moved to that position and how he's able to kind of move behind the plate that's most important and be explosive in a really unnatural position. So we have a mobility series that we go through, that we kind of take through. So the 4 muscle groups that we really hammer out is our quad, our hamstring, our hip flexor, and our calf. So those are the 4 muscles that essentially are your knee health. They kind of surround your knee and they keep your knee stable. So everything we do, I'll try and take you through it without getting on the floor and showing you how to do it. But essentially we focus on those 4 being not just mobile, but strong. When we talk about, and we'll get into stance and stuff like that, but when we get in our stance, we load our muscles. We try not to sit on our knees. So we're loading our hamstrings, and there's really the explosiveness, I think, comes from your glutes and your hand and your hip flexors firing forward, your quad and your hamstrings. So everything we do going into practice is a kind of a mobility routine where we stretch those muscles, and then it's kind of a firing, a wake up to those muscles where we're getting those muscles firing and warming them up, because that's all of our whole catching practice is going to be activated. Those muscles are going to be activated and they're going to be firing. I think the more you can do that, so we have about 20-25 minutes every day for individual practice with our catchers. So it's a very small amount of time. I mean, it's 10:30. We're probably going to do this until 2. So there's a lot to cover when it comes to catching, but I think when you try and condense it into a small amount of time, you really need to get the movements down and really fire them up as much as possible, because they're not going to get that anywhere else. When you get into the bullpen, and we'll get into bullpens, but when you get into the bullpen, there's times to go one knee. There's times to take the stress off because you're catching 35 innings in a day. So that individual catching practice is really, we fire up those 4 muscle groups. We stretch them, we get them mobile, and then we try and get them strong. And that's a start and finish. It's the start and finish to every weight lift that we do, any strength and conditioning workout that we do.
Great. Yeah. And Korey, talk a little bit about, I think one of my favorite things, Korey's got an awesome, and I'm not going to do it justice, so I'm not going to talk about it, but he's got the catchers doing a ton of stuff before practice even starts. And I think one of my favorite things is up in our offices at Barton, we overlook both the practice field and the game field. And if Korey does not like what he's seeing from their pre-work, he's going to go charging down the stairs and have a conversation with those guys. Always one of my, and I haven't had to see that much, but always one of my favorite things. So Korey, maybe just, kind of add, it sounds like Tim's doing a lot of the same things we're doing, kind of your plan with our guys before practice even starts.
Yeah, so really Tim kind of touched on a lot of the hip mobility stuff that we do, but kind of to break it down in a simple way is that, these guys, I hand them just a catcher's routine that I expect them to do every day, whether it be before practice or after practice, but really I prefer them to do it after practice. Obviously class sometimes get in the way of that, and I'm understanding of that and everything, and we have that conversation with the guys on, hey, if you only have a certain amount of time, this is what you really need to get through in order to be ready, and then we'll hit the ground running. But just to kind of take you guys through that, it's really broke down into first and foremost hip mobility routine. Starts out with kind of stationary stretches and then moves into more of a active kind of warm up, taking them through hurdles and leg swings and everything, trying to, I like Tim said, activate those muscles that are surrounding the knee. And then, when we'll get into this with the one knee stuff and everything like that. And but anyways, taking them through that hip mobility routine, and then it moves into a receiving routine, and you know, it's broken down from a rep standpoint, but it's really more of a feel thing where, you know, if they're you know, not feeling too great about it, you know, they can take a little bit longer on the receiving piece of it, or, you know, if they're feeling a little tight, they can maybe do an extra round of the hip stuff. So I give them a lot of freedom to kind of change it up, but you know, hip mobility, receiving, and they go into a blocking routine, and then I finish with footwork and transfer in terms of throwing to bases. So and I, you know, I break it down like that in terms of the importance. And I tell our guys, you know, it really is like a 45 to 50 minute routine. And once they get the hang of it, I mean, some of these guys knock it out in 30 to 35 minutes, but which I you know, kind of push for them to do. But you know, some days are different than the others. But you know, it's so important, I think, to have a routine in regardless of what you do, but especially in the catching position, because it just gets your mind right before you have to get into the team stuff or whatever you're doing for the day, and but get your body right as well, and so that, you know, and you know, I'm pretty tough on our guys about this, and they know, and you know, if they come into a bullpen setting and if that's what they're doing for practice, and you know, they're kind of, you know, being a little bit of a hack job back there, then I know immediately right away that they weren't ready for the day, and they didn't do the things that they needed to do. So at that point, you know, we'll you know, step aside and have a conversation. So I take that so seriously with our guys, and I'm pretty hard on them about it. And you know, I just think it's a really, really good thing to incorporate into your kind of daily routine.